people under, or 2 people under the required or the allowed amount of people. So hello from Mike and Chris and George and Diane and Melissa and Jesse, and Jed and me. The only one that's foolish enough to be here. Well, maybe not foolish enough. The only ones that we really had to have here. So we're going to do some worship together. And you may not feel comfortable singing out loud in your house with your husband or wife listening or your kids laughing at you. So you can sing along if you want to, or you can just clap along, or you can just stare blankly at the TV, which is what I'm guessing a lot of you will do. But that's okay. It's worship anyway. So we are going to worship. We're going to read from the Bible. We're going to talk together. We're going to pray together. And got a few things to share. So settle down. Get some coffee. You don't even have to get dressed. Slouch down on your couch, whatever. Center of my life. Unfortunately, we're not going to be putting the words up for you, so you'll just have to make them up as you go along if you don't know them. Let my walk speak loud, and my words be true. Let my life be whole with my eyes on you. Lord, I'm stepping out from the comfort zone, letting go of me, holding on to you. Freedom comes when I call you Lord. You are Lord, my God. You are the center of it all. Universe declares it all. Majesty, I surrender all. Make you the center of my life, and I respond with all I am. Place to me, song of hymn and melody. Majesty, I'm here to sing your song. Hide the mountains beneath, every place is in fear. You have done it all, I can trust in you. Lord, I'm stepping out from the comfort zone, letting go of me, holding on to you. Freedom comes when I call you Lord. You are Lord, my God. You are the center of it all. Universe declares it all. Majesty, I surrender all. Make you the center of my life, and I respond with all I am. Place to be, song of hymn and melody. Your Majesty, live to sing your song. This is your song, not mine, not mine. This is your song, that brings healing to this land. This is your song, not mine, not mine. This is your song, that brings freedom. You are the center of it all. The universe declares it all. Your Majesty, I surrender all. Make you the center of my life, and I respond with all I am. Place to me, song of hymn and melody. Majesty, here to sing your song. Majesty, here to sing your song. Majesty, I'm here to sing your song. All right, everybody, clap your hands at home. Everybody in the studio audience, clap your hands. Thank you, Diane. We have one person in the chairs this morning, Diane. She's singing along as loud as she possibly can. She knows nobody can hear her, but she can actually sing quite well. So anyway, pour it on, clap along, sing along with this. I was going to say, we'll take some requests. That's tough. If you have a request this morning, text it to Diane's phone. No, that won't work either. Because see, we're really only pretending to be live. You'll be watching this later. We'll already all be at home laying on our couches by then. when you're watching this, but it feels live. So Diane, that texting thing won't work. I think she believed me. Anyway, we're going to sing something old. We just sang something new, so I'll fly away, which is what we probably all need to do at this point. Say some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to my home on God bless the shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away. Where I die, hallelujah. Stuff back there to the stage, please. Now, we usually do announcements about right now, so I'm going to do a couple. I want you to know, first of all, we are obeying. Let's see, Melissa is, don't touch it. You might have it. Anyway, Melissa is 7 feet away from me, and Jen is below. Still here. Jen is, no, he's good. Jen is 7, so if I catch it from anybody, I have a feeling it could be Jesse. No, we made it in, and my glasses don't meet up close. 5 feet, but I think it's 6 feet if I put it right on Jesse's nose. And Diane, don't get any closer than that, please. Thank you. So, you've been hearing all kinds of stuff on how to get through this thing, and we're not making light of it, but we might as well laugh or we might cry. So, the 2 most important things that I've been able to gather from everything that's been said, everything, is stay a few feet away from people, because I went into the drugstore yesterday and the guy in front of me was coughing all over the place in his hand, and then he grabbed a little pen to sign his name, and I thought, No way in the world am I signing my name with that pen, and I left. So, as it turned out, it wasn't ready anyway, so I had to come back later, and no telling who had their hands on it beforehand. So, keep your distance as much as you can, and wash your hands. I don't know if you can buy this stuff anymore. Can you buy it anywhere?
No, it's gone. Even online.
It's gone.
Even online, it's gone.
Can't get it online. So, don't anybody come in and steal this from the church. All right, it's going to be sitting here. We are starting to run low ourselves. But anyway, if you have alcohol, which you probably can't buy either,
Nope.
you could use that in a spray bottle. So, you know, these little things that we took for granted, now we learn. They're important. Who would ever think we needed to stock up on toilet paper? Yesterday, we are definitely living in a strange world because people are going door to door selling coronavirus tests. And of course they're fake. This is very ugly because these situations bring out not only the best in people, but they bring out the worst in people. The people that are going to do bad, this is a perfect opportunity for them. So they're going door to door, especially the elderly people selling these things, and in some cases going inside and robbing them or knocking them around, or maybe something worse. Because as you all know, I think in Philadelphia and a few other cities in the world, it's now okay to commit misdemeanor crimes. So you can rob, you can mug old ladies on the street, I guess. And this is not the cops' fault. This came down from somewhere up above. So it is a very strange world. Yesterday, so you probably heard it, because I'm not on Facebook, so I get my news on the news. Or from my wife, who's very informed. Or from my son, who's like a walking historical encyclopedia of modern times. But anyway, so I don't have to look anything up. I know somebody's going to tell me. But yesterday in North Carolina, anybody know what happened? Weird in this. Anybody in this room know what happened in North Carolina yesterday? I know you know. I told you. We got one person in the audience, and yet it's still noisy in here. Okay, no, you don't know. You may have heard, you've already forgotten. Maybe you weren't as impressed as me. An 18-wheeler got pulled over. We're hoping it's not Tim. Chris, I don't know. Chris doesn't know where Tim is. I hope he's not in Tim, I'm pretty sure if you end up listening to this, I don't think you were the guy. Because this guy was hauling 30,000 pounds of stolen toilet paper. So I don't know where he was going with it, but they caught him. And so the people of North Carolina now have a lot more toilet paper, or maybe, I don't know, maybe they just kept it down at the station. Who knows, it'll last them for the next 50 years. But anyway, so it's a weird world, for sure. Hang on, somebody's texting me. This is going to be very real this morning. We're not trying to, whoops. I just told you, my son is a walking encyclopedia of modern knowledge. Hang on. Okay, yeah, it's not something I'll read right now. It's not good news. But anyway, we're looking for whatever good news we can find this morning. You'll hear enough of bad news, and not going to be trying to get into all of the ins and outs and opinions about what's going on. There are, I think, 8 of us here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us. We probably all have different opinions to some degree about what's going on, from an alien invasion to, I don't know, whatever. But, so I don't have the answers to that. All I know is what we're actually living in. So we are living in a new world, and it needs to be a brave new world for sure. And things are a little different, and I'm sure they're going to be even more different by this time next Sunday. You'll have to watch for, we're going to be making our announcements on the church Facebook page. This video later will be uploaded to Vimeo. I know you need a link. You don't have it yet, but you will not receive that till probably sometime around 12 or 1 o'clock. There are internet problems in the county. Rapid Systems is not so rapid today. But the live streaming for us was not working. So we're just going to simply record this morning, and if we are all here next week doing the same thing, hopefully we'll be live streaming, and we'll know that we'll literally be doing this stuff at the same time. But it'll be available to you. You'll see a link on Facebook pretty soon, be later after lunch, and then shortly after that you should be able to pull it up and have your own little church service there at home. You can have communion, find some crackers, find some kind of juice, whatever. Use whatever you have. I'm sure the Lord will be understanding, but just have your time together. Also, I don't know how this is going to work exactly, but we do have a children's story that's going to be downloaded or uploaded, excuse me, whatever you do, that you'll be able to click on from Vimeo, which will take you actually to Facebook page, which I believe is Bayside Facebook page where Luke works, but he's got a fantastic 6-minute video for your kids, and it's actually the same story that I'm going to read to you today. So I don't think it was an accident. And your kids will love it. They will not like listening to me, probably, but they will have a good time listening to his story. So you have something for the kids, and I don't know how long we're going to be here. Everybody's probably wondering why I'm talking so much. So anyway, get paid to talk, I guess. And everybody's really quiet right now, so I can say whatever I want. Anyway, we're going to sing a little more, and then we're going to get into some scripture. Oh, one other announcement, offering. Even though we're not meeting, the bills still have to be paid. We can hold the fort like the Alamo for a little while, but you know what eventually happened to the Alamo. So anyway, if you want to give, and you give in cash normally, we decided not to set up a PayPal account for it. We had originally planned to do that, but for several reasons we're not. So if you have cash, you'll need to put it in an envelope if you're able to travel, and just come stick it through the slot in the doors, between the front doors, and it'll be safe. There aren't very many keys, so if it disappears, we've only got about a dozen people we got to haul in and interrogate. So anyway, the easiest thing probably to do if you're coming by, if you give your tithes by a check, you can either mail it in. It's P.O. Box 97. I feel like a TV preacher. Yes, that's P.O. Box 97, Wauchula, Florida 33873. And we will send you a new copy, a brand new copy of my most recent book when I get it written. Anyway, you can send your offering in P.O. Box 97, Wauchula, or you can come stick your check through between the doors, because our front doors have like a gap between them, and you know, you can slip it right in there and it will be safe. We will collect those periodically. Anyway, anything else I need to tell the people? We may or may not be here next week in this format, depending on what kind of guidelines you know, the state puts down or whatever. We'll see. You may just be here in 15 minutes of me on my phone. So at home, we'll just see what happens. We go day by day at this point in life. So still in tune, remarkably. God, you're so good. This is actually an old song that they rewrote and added new words to it. I haven't played it in about 3 weeks, so I'm just going to kind of hope I remember it. But they just added new words to it. But we were singing this back when I was in high school, back before the earth cooled. Anyway. Amazing love welcomes me, the kindness of mercy, you bought with blood wholeheartedly, my soul undeserving. God, you're so good. God. tell you, there's actually about 500 people here this morning that's stuck in the back door while you're hearing so much noise. But God is good, and He's taking care of us. And I don't mean that lightly. People are always saying, God is good all the time. Well, it's true, but I don't use the phrase because it's so worn out. But the truth is that He is good. And during the difficult times, the easy times. I mean, a couple of months ago, we were all just living our lives and as normally as people live their lives these days. And now we're living in a whole different kind of world. And, but we're not alone. We've not been abandoned. I want to share a few things this morning, and I'm not going to just stop and preach a sermon. I don't feel that format's going to really work for us, but so I'm going to kind of, scatter my message through our worship time, our music. And, that way the band has to stand up here with me, although they're all sitting down, that figures. George is, I'm the only one standing in this room, I just want you to know, but I will stand. I can't figure out a real easy way to work it out. Otherwise, I would sit. We've lived through a lot of stuff. I've heard a lot of people say these things. And I think back to when this particular church started. It was 2004 in July. In July of 2004, and I think most of you know what happened in August of 2004, correct? So we had a huge pile of people, actually more people then than we have now, so I don't know, we started a new church growth type of approach to get smaller evidently, but we had a huge number of people. But once the hurricane hit, we had nowhere to meet, and I'll tell you, by the following Sunday, we managed to meet in the park downtown on Main Street, and I think there were either 6 or 8 of us. And the next week there was about 15. And so on. It went that way and got a little bigger as the weeks went by, and God finally gave us, He didn't give us this building. Lord, that would have been cool, but we bought this building and have been buying it ever since. But He provided a building for us that was relatively free of damage when there was really nowhere else to go. So He took care of us. He put us in a better place, and we're better for it. And we didn't let that stop us. I know this is different. Hurricanes come and go, and the fear is over after a few hours. You just have to deal with the aftermath. But, this is a little different. It sort of hangs over our heads every day and every night. And every time we turn on the TV, it's the only thing we're going to hear about. But anyway, God is here. He's always here. And He hasn't forgotten us. I've heard some people try to personalize this. Well, I think God did this so that I could learn to be more loving. Well, people, I got news for you. The whole world is being affected. Now, maybe God did bring on a pandemic for the entire world just to teach you personally something. Now, He's capable of that. But what I more believe is God is going to use this if you allow Him. I don't know how you're going to go. You're going to be making choices. So, we're pretty casual here, and this morning extremely casual, as you can tell by my hat. I'm more comfortable with my hat, so I'm wearing it today. But today we're going to talk about the F word. Everybody gasp at one time. No, you do not need to have your kids leave the room. The F word is fear. And then we're going to talk about the other F word. No, he's going to do it. No, faith. Talking about 2 F words this morning, fear and faith. And I want to read a scripture so it can begin to ruminate, work through your brain, and you can be thinking about it. And this will be the same scripture that's used later in the children's story that you can view, hopefully, after you watch this. Hang on one second. I got to do a couple of things. My glasses don't work close up. You might figure I'm backwards from everybody else. I have to take them off to read. Does anybody else have to do that? Marlon, okay, so I'm not the only one. Reading from Matthew chapter 28, or 27. Let me back up. I didn't know and I've forgotten since last night. No, I definitely didn't know. Matthew chapter 8. I missed it by 20. So, It's Matthew chapter 8, and it's a short passage, a very short account of a great story that we've all heard since we were little kids in Sunday school, and those of you that have been in the story of Jesus know quite well. Some of us very personally. Anyway, starting at verse 23, it says, Jesus got into a boat with his disciples. So evidently, probably all 12 of them were there. 13 people in a boat. Suddenly, a terrible storm came up on the lake so that the waves swept over the boat. Now, that's big waves. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up and said, Lord, save us. Don't you care if we drown? And Jesus replied, Oh, you of little faith. Or in other words, where's your faith? Why are you so afraid? And then Jesus got up, and you all know the words we use. Peace, be still. He spoke to the winds and the waves, and it became completely calm. And all the men, which were his 12 disciples, were amazed, to say the least. And they said, the line that I really want to emphasize today, what kind of a man is this that even the winds and the waves obey him? Wow. What kind of a man is this that even the wind and the waves obey him? I was looking at the calendar yesterday. I was looking online at some different things, trying to figure out why I grew up such a scared child. And it took me a long time, even after I became an adult, to manage fear, which still creeps in every once in a while. Every once in a while, I still think there might be a monster under my bed, and I find out it's just some of Diane's dirty clothes or something. But fear, still tries to haunt me. I'm not a pitch black in the dark person. I'd rather have a light on. It's just the way I am. But I thought back. And in the summer of 1962, you all know my brother was killed in a car wreck, and I've talked about it a jillion times. I'm not going into that, but that was in July of 1962. Then in October of the same year, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I don't know about you, for some of you that are my age or close to my age, and for you guys that are younger, read about it in the history books. Wow, never thought our lives would be in the history books. But anyway, it was a scary time. My mother was hard of hearing. She could hear, but she had to turn. You think we're allowed to hear weekly music? She turned the news on every morning at 7 o'clock. It didn't matter whether you wanted to get up because the TV was going to be up almost as loud as it could go. I'm not exaggerating. I grew up that way. She didn't have hearing aids, so she turned it up to the point she could hear, and it would almost drive us out of the house. But I grew up, she was a news junkie, and she was pretty much a doomsday kind of person. So from a time I was a little bitty kid, I knew all the bad things that were going on in the world. Then in 1962, my brother was killed, and a few months later, we were practicing drills at our school, going in the hallway and covering our heads up like that was going to protect us from nuclear fallout or a bomb, but what else can you do? You got to do something with the kids. We even practiced getting under our desks. And I remember going home, and my little brother Maynard, some of you remember from way back, his name's really Billy Graham. But anyway, I used to make him practice, and he was about 4 or 5 at the time, and we would hide under the kitchen table. But we lived in fear, and there were other events, as you know, during the Cold War. Most of us that are somewhere, anywhere to 40 and up, have had some influence of the Cold War in our lives that was very real, even though there really weren't any shots being fired. But we believed all the time, and I believed growing up as a child that we could die, and I thought we probably were going to die. Because I'd heard all the news that the Russians had enough nuclear bombs to kill us all 50 times, but we had enough to kill them all 100 times, so yeah, we'll probably win, right? Or does everybody end up dead? I'm smart enough to realize once you kill somebody once, that's it. So it doesn't matter whether you can do it 50 times or 100. But I lived in fear. And there wasn't any counseling in those days. And my parents were pretty old-fashioned, and they didn't talk about things with us. So, get ready, go to school. come and eat, go to bed. It was, pretty simple stuff around my house. And so there was really no help. And politics were certainly never discussed at church, even then. But it took me a long time, and lots of other events took place in my life, and I'm sure that anybody that's on the stage this morning could tell you things as well that affected them as children or even as younger adults. And here we are at another very strange kind of situation we've never been in. And again, I'm not going to speculate on how severe it is or what kind of politics are driving what. I'm sure it's being used for political gain. Everything is, and that's about as ugly as it gets. So it's crazy, but nonetheless, we are in a difficult situation where if we want to be good citizens and thoughtful of our neighbors, when we don't know the full extent of the problem, we do have to abide, in my opinion, by the things that officials are asking us to do. Now, if this were a persecution situation, where they were saying, hey, we've decided you can no longer worship Jesus, it's going to be against the law, we don't want you doing that, there'd be a whole different thing going on. Now, we might not be here, we might be hiding in a cave. I don't think Florida's got caves, but we might be hiding in an orange grove somewhere or out in the woods, but it's not that. And I pray that it would never turn into that. But at the same time, we are being persecuted, whether we are Christians or not, by a sickness that's very real to a lot of people, and to some people, perhaps it's not believed that it's really anything to be concerned about. It's not my place to call that. If you want to hear everybody's opinions, just turn on the TV and get plenty. What I'm going to say to you this morning is that you have to choose which F word. This illustration is just going too far. I'm going to have to quit using that terminology. You've got to choose which one of those words you're going to use. Fear or faith. And I'm trying to say I'm more spiritual than anybody. Listen, fear in the right context is our friend. If we meet a Siberian tiger out on the street, and we don't have fear of that, something wrong with us. Fear can save your life, but that does not mean we are to live in fear. So I have a healthy, respectful fear of any threat that's out there, including this virus. I have a healthy respect and fear, but I refuse to live in fear or in panic. Now, because I'm trying to obey the guidelines put down by the CDC and the government or whoever else, whatever else is passed down to us, does not mean I am running in fear and panic. And I don't think you should either. So easy on the toilet paper. Easy. Save some for someone else, all right? I don't think there's any out there to be had. But anyway, we don't need to panic. And, you've already heard all that as well. But the only reason it applies this morning is that you have to choose faith. When the storm hit the Sea of Galilee, it was bad. It was bad. The reason we know it was bad is a couple of things. Says the waves were coming over the boat. We're in Florida. We've all been out in boats, and we've probably been in boats in situations where we probably shouldn't have been out there, either that far or when the sea or the waters were that rough. And you can still be in a bay, in a harbor, and still get into pretty serious trouble if you're in a tiny boat. Sea of Galilee is a pretty big, it's a lake, you might say, by our terms, but it's called the Sea of Galilee, and it's freshwater, unlike the Dead Sea, which is salty and dead water for the most part. But Sea of Galilee is where the life's blood was for the people of Israel. Many, many people were fishermen, and many people lived around its shores, all the way around the entire Sea of Galilee. And because of some of the cliffs that are in specific places, I've studied about this, don't remember the details, but they can have some unbelievable, terrible storms on that one. Kind of like, what caught the Edmund Fitzgerald. Where was the Edmund Fitzgerald? Which, Lake Superior? And who sang that song?
Gordon Lightfoot.
Gordon Lightfoot. You sure that wasn't the name of the boat?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gordon Lightfoot was the name of the boat, and Edmund Fitzgerald was the guy that sang it?
Oh.
No, I know better than that. Okay, I heard that once somewhere. But anyway, you know, this sea could get really rough, and on that day it did. I don't know how big a boat these guys were in, but the typical fishing boat was not very large. 20 feet would be pushing probably in most cases. And it was likely a boat that belonged to Peter and his brother, or maybe James and John. Peter and Andrew, those four were fishermen, we know by profession for sure. So it was a boat that was probably normally held 4 people. It had 13 in it, and the storm was bad. Now the apostles failed the test. They passed one test, they failed the other one. They were in terror. Now, I probably would have been too. I don't like waves coming over the boat. I like boats, but I'd like to be able to swim ashore, number one. Number two, I don't want the waves higher than the boat. And, but these waves were terrible, and the wind was blowing. One of these bad storms that they have over there was happening. Jesus was sleeping. And we're going to spiritualize this story. In other words, we're going to apply spiritual thoughts to just a physical story. And Jesus didn't think back then, I think I'll fall asleep in the boat because in the year 2020, they'll tell this story and it'll work out really cool as an illustration. No, this is just what happened. But what does it tell us? Jesus had no reason for concern. He knew way more than they knew. And I read something, and this is hard to live by, that if something is not worrying God, it shouldn't worry us. Now that's a big statement, easy to say right here, especially in an empty room, but harder to live by. But it is what we need to do. The apostles were terrified. They were probably irritated. Why isn't he getting up? What's wrong with him? So they finally woke him up and basically said, Lord, we're going to drown. Don't you care what happens to us? Do something. And so they had given to fear, and they, because of fear, moved into desperation. And for men who had lived their lives on the Sea of Galilee, especially Peter, Andrew, James, and John, if they were afraid, this was a storm to be afraid of for people. But Jesus stood up, and he just simply spoke the word, and the sea was calmed. That's all there is to it. And he asked them a simple question. Basically, where's your faith? Now, I've had people say that to me lately, and I have to tell you, it irritates me. If I tell people, well, you know, we're not going to do this, and we're going to have to cancel the play, I've had people basically say, where's your faith? I think it's a different kind of situation. This was an immediate threat to their lives, and Jesus himself was in the boat with them. He had seen them do a lot of other things. Now, he didn't walk on water in that same story. We only did it that way in the play because, for heaven's sake, we only wanted to pull that boat in one time tonight. Because a couple of times it was pushed in by hand by guys who've not forgiven me yet. But that was mostly because after they pushed the boat in, and finally got it in, I canceled the scene, and they had to push it out. We didn't even do the scene. But anyway, it didn't happen then, but they had seen him do these miraculous things. Now the thing they did right is they looked to Jesus. They looked to Jesus. So what I want to tell you today is choose faith over fear. And we all know the famous words, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. I found out not only Churchill but Roosevelt said the same thing. They worded it a little bit differently. I tried to memorize the way they both said it, but it's so close that I knew I would mess it up. So I'm just going to leave it at that. They both essentially said the same thing, just worded a little bit different. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And I understand the sickness is something to have fear over, but what is the greater fear is giving in to fear. Because fear is right here. Fear is not something I can hand to you. It's something that's conjured up and builds up in your mind. Now, it's fed by all sorts of things outside, and we're all being fed. At the worst times of my life, but this has only been in later years, so for some of you teenagers and people that have been doing this long, just keep working at it. It took me a long time to be able to get into a crisis and decide I was going to choose to have faith and not let fear run me. Now, I can't say every time I pass that test. Some times I'm like the apostles on the sea and go crazy and start screaming at God and say, what are you doing? What are you trying to do to me? Please, you remember my name? You remember I'm here? Calm this storm. Calm this storm. So it's taken a long time, and I would not say that great at it. Some people are better. I think some people are born with a personality that does not lend itself to fear as much as others. We're all different. And we talk about the differences in us all the time, But in the end, it is still about God. If you're a person that has a little bit of fear, or a person that gets very afraid very easy, the answer is still choose faith. Just like you chose to follow Jesus Christ. You choose to come to church. You choose to do all sorts of things. You may not want to go to the dentist, but you choose to go because you know you need to go. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but yeah, I am. I am trying to oversimplify it. Because in the end, guys, it will get down to making a choice. We either live in just absolute fear, and just because if we get locked down this week by the state of Florida and we're not supposed to leave our houses for the most part, that does not mean we are huddled up in the corner in fear. Now, some will be. So this morning, if that's where you are right now, or this afternoon when you're watching this, you need to know that you can make a choice. You can make a choice to choose faith over fear. We're going to sing another song, and then I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions on how you choose faith over fear, because it's easier to talk about than it is to actually do. So that's something that has to be considered and looked at. Try Shout to the Lord. Not sure how it's going to work out, but it's a good song. It's a victory song. I can remember chorus. My Savior, oh, there is none like you. even though we're apart this morning, we're still together. And God, we can be together by being apart. And that's a choice. That's a choice, Lord, again. So we choose faith today. Thank you, Lord. What I want to share with you just briefly, again, before we sort of start wrapping this together, wrapping it up, just a couple of thoughts on how that might help you choose faith over fear. They're pretty simple, but in times like this, I think we need simple and profound. First one is, God is bigger than any storm that you will face. He is bigger. This is one kind of storm we're in, and because of this storm, we all find ourselves in different, unique kinds of storms as a result of that. We have many people who can't work, many people who are struggling financially. We have people that are sick, either with the coronavirus or something else. So, all sorts of storms. And when you have a storm like we have, which is worldwide, and then you throw in a couple of your own storms, like a sick person in your family, whether it be from this virus or something else, or maybe a financial problem, you end up with the perfect storm, which is awful. Perfect storm's a phrase we all know, but when you hear the word perfect storm, it is not a good thing. I would call it the imperfect storm. But God is greater. First thing you got to know. Who is this man? And they use the word man because Jesus was in the flesh at that time, walking around in the body of a man. But who is this man that even the wind and the sea obey him? That's who we have watching over us. So the first thing is to remember that God is bigger. He is way bigger, no matter what the storm may bring. And this may not be the biggest storm that we experience even in this particular event or events to come down the road. And it is not easy. That's why faith, the Bible says God gave each of us a measure of faith. I don't know if he used the same measuring cup. This person got, Cleve, now you're a faith prayer and you are important to us for that reason especially. Maybe when he dumped your faith out, he used a full cup. And maybe when he dumped out mine, he used a little quarter cup. I don't know. Measuring cups come in different sizes. All I know is we've all been given faith, but we have to choose whether we act on the faith and put the fear over here in its place. We have to. So the first thing to remember is God's bigger. The second thing to remember is very profound as well. When you're in this situation and the storm is all around you, the only way to get peace is call on Jesus. Look to Jesus. He is the master of the sea. He is the master of the storm. And on that day, that's the test the apostles did not fail. They got swallowed up by fear to the point that they thought, just like some of us have thought, is somebody in my family going to get sick and die? Am I going to have a job when this is all over? Is the economy going to come back? All the questions we have, how are we going to get through this? The apostles lost it in the beginning because when they woke Jesus up, were at a point of panic. They had been seized by fear and given into it. But they did the right thing, which is my second point. They looked and called out to Jesus, who's the master of the sea. And so Jesus could easily just speak to the storm. He didn't have to. He could have said, tie everything down, get James the less. He's supposed to be the smallest, they think. Tie him to the mast, whatever you got to do, and hang on, because we'll be on the other side of the sea in 3 or 4 hours. It's going to be fine. He didn't do that. He spoke to the sea and it stopped. And a lot of people don't realize in the story, they immediately found themselves on the other side of the sea. They were there. So there were a couple miracles going on there. And that's how it is in our lives. So understand God's bigger than this storm or any other storm. And so if you're at home with your husband or wife and your biggest storm is you're afraid you're going to kill each other if you don't get out of the house, Can we find some laughs to put on there too, Mike? We can throw in now and then. You don't have to do that today, but you probably will find it. But anyway, of course, you'll have to know something I'm saying is supposed to be funny. That may be hard. But anyway, listen, whatever fear, understand that the only way to find peace is going to be looking at Him and calling on Him. Now, you can do other things. You can do yoga, which I do. I don't meditate all night. Yeah, it sounds more like a dog barking, I think. Anyway, so you can do a lot of things to help calm your soul and your spirit. But in the final end, if you're meditating, you're sitting quietly on the floor listening to soft music, your meditation better be on the Word of God and on Jesus Christ. Who is this man who can speak to the wind and the waves and they will obey Him? He can speak to this virus and it would be no more. For whatever reason, God's allowing it. I don't know if it's part of a bigger plan. If this is part of the, I don't believe in the rapture, you all know that particularly, but you can believe in it, it doesn't matter to me. But if this is part of the terrible things that are going to happen after the rapture, then guess what? We all got left behind. So I'm pretty sure that's not where we are, but it's real to some extent, whatever that might be and whatever you may believe that it is, but the effect is real on us all. Very real. The last thing, how you choose faith over fear, is remember that Jesus is always in your boat. He's always in your boat. I mean, unless you push Him out. Speaking of that, you know that many interesting things happen during the story of Jesus. A lot of things I'm just now hearing about. And I'm grateful that I've been shielded from them for many decades, because I would have had a heart attack probably a long time ago. But now and then somebody confesses a story to me of something crazy that happened that I had never heard. One day we'll have to gather those, and I think it could be a bestseller. But anyway, videos would be better, but we just don't have them. It would have been nice to have a video on several nights when we were doing this scene in the play. Many things happened. Jed had the privilege of coming across there. I don't know how many times, hanging from those cables. And Randall had the privilege of coming across there. And I think I did at one time when nobody else was around to do it for whatever reason, I don't know. But that never worked out real well, ever. Because it's hard for us to pull off miracles. God's good at it. We're a little rusty and have a few problems, but I have seen Jesus in the arena come to the boat doing spins. Kind of like, yeah, right, exactly. He's spinning. I've seen him come backwards, which is pretty cool, because only helicopters and hummingbirds can really do that, but Jesus would fly back or float backwards into the boat. I've seen him just give up and just walk through the dirt. And I saw Randall one night pulled up through the store on the west end of the set, up and drug through the rafters before George was able to turn the switch off, because George is going, what? And everybody's screaming. But the night I remember the most, and I don't know if it was Jed or Randall, Jed might remember, but when I say Jesus was always in the boat, it was an interesting night, because on that night, 2 Jesuses were in the boat. Now, what would be better than 1 Jesus in the boat? But 2. Anyway, the reason that happened is, was it you? Do you remember? It was Randall, I think. It's time for Jesus to walk on the water, and the music's running, and it doesn't wait, unless whoever's up in a sound booth or whatever decides to pause it, which they weren't going to do, but everybody I can hear on the headsets, where is he? Where is he? He's not coming. And so we eventually see empty cables moving. No Jesus. I'm right there in the center at gate 2. So I run out, jump in the boat. I'm going to stand up, just at the right moment. So, the cables weren't coming. They were still down there. So I get in the boat, and the boat's rocking around, and the storm's still going on, because I had to wait a long time to go out there. And then I look, and of course, here comes the other Jesus, floating along on the cables. Now, even I know that that's one too many of Jesus in a boat. So I thought, well, he's coming, and he can't stop it, because George is going to bring him and fly him right into the boat. There's nothing he can do about it. So I thought, I'll just jump overboard. So I didn't want to be seen, so a lot of apostles kind of scooted up together, and I rolled off the back of the boat. Now, I didn't realize how high that boat sits from the ground. I should have, because I'd walked up to it before, but the rim of the boat was always at my head, so I fell 6 feet flat on the ground. And I decided to stay there because I didn't think I could walk at that point. But we had 2 of Jesus in the boat. Well, you know, good to look back and laugh on those things sometimes, but the truth is, he's always in the boat. And if he needs to reveal himself to you twice or 3 times or 4 times, he'll do whatever he needs. But you've got to choose faith. You've got to choose to believe he's in the boat. Because he's not in the habit these days of just physically appearing every time you turn around. I would never say people have not looked upon Jesus literally in some form on planet Earth. I know some people that I think maybe might have. They say they have, and I think they might be telling the truth. I've always wanted to see him. I'd be happy just with an angel. Okay? But I don't think I've ever looked on one physically. But Jesus is in your boat. So don't bail out like I did. I had to get out. I didn't belong in there at the time. But a lot of people bail out of the boat when the storm gets bad. Now, the way you bail out is you quit believing. You turn your back on God. You choose fear. You pull away from fellowship. Even though we're not meeting here in the building, we're still gathering. Hopefully you're out there listening. Those are the ways that you bail out. So don't jump out just because the water is rocking the boat. Because God's more powerful. And if you look to Jesus, you can find some peace in your heart. And that's his promise. You may say, I don't know how to do that. I can't do it. Practice. I don't know what else to tell you. I've been practicing it for a long time. And there's still times where Diana slapped me around and say, what are you worrying about? You know, because I grew up a warrior, in a family of warriors. They could have majored in it. And that's all I ever saw. So, over time, I had to learn how to choose faith over fear. And that's how we get through this. This is how we do it. I'm going to take a minute and just mention people who need prayer. That's my message. I'll close again by saying, who is this man that even the wind and the waves obey him? He can handle this. He already knows what's going on. Trust him. Of course, we need to be in prayer for Joe. I know Joe can't watch this. It's not going to happen. Kelly, if you're watching, we're praying for you. Georgia, if you're watching, we're praying for you. Marlon and Chris, we're going to be praying for you guys as well. Sherry, Marnwell, we're definitely praying for you because you are definitely probably in a storm that is so much worse than most of us are dealing with. But I know your faith is real. You've talked to me and many people, some people right here. We know you've chosen faith. And I'm looking down where you normally sit. I don't see you, but I know that you're there in spirit. And I know you've chosen faith over fear. Because that's the kind of person you are. Your faith is like that. Who else do we need to mention? I know it's not everybody, so everybody help me if you can. If we're live next week, we'll let you text the prayer request in. Pray for Judith. She lives alone now. Hasn't been doing that for a long time, and now she's really alone, having to stay home most of the time. Pray for all of our guys that are in the service right now for their protection, their safekeeping. Can you guys think of anybody else we should mention that I'm not thinking of?
Kevin Dean.
Kevin, some of you don't know Kevin unless you're here on Wednesdays. Great big guy that comes with Bruce Mayer. He had ended up in the hospital over the last week with, he had several seizures to the point that he was put on life support. But he came out of it because he wrote Diane yesterday. He lived through it, and he has a lot of medical problems we weren't aware of. So Kevin, if you're watching today, praying for you. Diane?
Bradley
Braxton. I hope it's all right to say this, Braxton. I don't know if you'll see this. Hopefully we can tell you how you can watch the service. Braxton is in Okeechobee at Faith Farm, or on his way there. He's been struggling with stuff for a long time. Braxton, I'm sorry, I don't think it's that private, and I'm not going into details, but we believe you're going to win. Just look to the guy in the boat that can calm the water. Speak to the ocean. So be praying. We'll be praying for you, Braxton. Who else? Anybody? If we're leaving you out, we apologize. There are only 8 of us here, so it's sometimes hard to remember everybody that especially needing prayer, and I know there's some other situations. I don't know what they are. I can't remember.
Like
Yeah.
first responders, nurses, president.
Right. You couldn't hear Mike, but he said the first responders, of course, they are constantly being exposed all the time. But now there's this additional sickness, and I would add to that the medical staff everywhere. They are in the thick of it, and in a lot of cases don't have what they need to protect themselves. And then he mentioned the president, and I say amen to that. That man is under tremendous pressure we can't even understand. And all of that committee, basically, I've forgotten what they're called, but he has no problem, as you all know, talking about God. He has no problem talking about Christianity, the church, or Jesus. And it's nice to have a president for the first time in a long time that doesn't just sort of allude to a higher power and say God in a universal sense. This man does not apologize. We know which God he's talking about. And we believe that is the only God that there is. So anyway, please pray for him. And all the rest of our government as well that are dealing with these things. Anybody else?
Doc Smith.
Doc Smith, thank you. Doc, I don't know that you'll ever see this, but for some reason you do pull it up or get to see it. Say hello to you, and we're just so happy you're recovering from your surgery. He did have very serious surgery, but you're special to us, and we're praying for you. Lots of us, a lot. I have Jed pray in a minute. Jed, I don't expect you to try to name any of these people. As we are praying, as we mention your names this morning, we are praying, you're praying. God's listening to us. We're in prayer right now. But anybody else before we move on? Again, forgive me if we've forgotten you. We don't mean to. We're just people. And, when I woke up this morning with allergies, I took so much Benadryl, I wasn't sure where I was or what my name was. And I don't drink coffee on Sunday morning in my house. Only Diane gets the coffee. We're rationing the coffee. No, that's not true at all. If you can't find coffee, I'll tell you where you might place the blame. Either on Diane or George Garland. Because the coffee's being hoarded. But anyway, I can't remember my own name sometimes in the morning when I wake up, so we can't remember all these prayer requests, but God does remember. We're with you. So I'm going to ask Jed to pray, and then we'll kind of finish up.
Father, we exalt you this morning.
Amen.
Thank you, Father, that even though we're not grouped together as a family, we are a family.
Amen.
Father, there's no distance in the Spirit. Lord, the blood of Christ runs through all of our veins. We are closer than physical. Father, we're spiritual. And Lord, we know, you know, that we're living in a time that is unprecedented. Lord, but the Bible says your eyes go to and fro across the earth. You have not missed anyone.
That's right.
And Father, we know that we can boldly walk into the throne room of God and seek mercy and grace. And today, Father, I'm asking that mercy and grace fall upon the people that were mentioned. And Father, we don't always understand why we have to go through things that we have to go through. But Father, we know that the Word says it's all about your glory. And God, we don't understand that statement. We think we do, but we don't understand what your glory sometimes really means. And Father, whether that is you calm the storm or you calm the child. And Father, we know we have an anchor that holds. It will not slip. Father, continue to let us pull on that anchor rope, Father, and know that we are secure in your hand. Lord, I've been reading a lot in Isaiah where it says, and in Psalms where it says, the pestilence will not affect you. And Father, sometimes we look at it going, well, then we're going to be safe all the time. No. Lord, we know that the pestilence that's talked about there, Father, is an eternal pestilence, Father. We are safe in your hand. Father, whether we exist on this planet or whether we're in heaven. God, today that it is the desires of our hearts, Father, that you heal, that you bring a healing to your people, Father. But God, we stand in your will. And Father, touch the people that have been spoken of today. Father, give them a season of peace.
Amen. Please, Lord.
Give them a season, Father, that they understand that you are the one in control. Lord, as Mike said before, let us have faith. Let us stand on the strong promises of God. Let us stand in the face of the enemy because, Father, you told us to. And God, when fear comes up, Lord, let us understand and know that nothing, absolutely nothing passes without your permission and without your guidance and without your knowledge. God, strengthen us. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Father, strengthen us, Father. Lord, with a spirit that the world does not understand. God, let us be a light in a dark place. Father, through all this stuff, Lord, let us glorify the name of Jesus. God, we just praise you and we thank you, Father, that, Lord, that you loved us before we loved you. Father, you were concerned about us before we were concerned about you. God, continue to guide. Continue to lead. And Father, we want to be right in the center of your perfect will. Father, let us continue in obedience to you. We just love you, Father. And we thank you that we have a secure promise. No matter what the world says, no matter what's going on. You're our security. Thank you, Father, in the name of Jesus.
Amen. I was sure by now you would have reached down and wiped our tears away, stepped up to save the day. But once again, I say amen. It's still raining as the thunder rolls. I barely hear you whisper in the rain. stop. We're done. I didn't mention earlier Jesse, who lost his brother just last week. I should have mentioned him. Just keep him in your prayers. He's here this morning, right behind me. Anyway, thank you. What's that? Andrea.
Nancy.
No, Nancy Vasquez. Nancy, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I've been texting her daily, and I stopped texting her because I found out Nancy has a huge fan club of people who text to call her. So many that she can't even sleep. But she is finally improving, and she did test negative for the coronavirus, so she's got something else, which they thought. Keep Nancy Vasquez in your prayer. Also keep prayers. Nancy, hello. Get better. Tino, hang in there. We're praying for you all. And Nancy Weems as well. We're thinking of you too, as you and Kelly survive out there in the middle of nowhere. Anybody else we should mention? Pardon me? Oh, Andrea again. Yeah. Andrea just in a situation now where she just had to move 2 weeks ago, and now she's going to have to move again. So, Andrea, we're praying for you, and hope things work out for you. And for everybody else, we love you all. We can look out there right now. I can just see them. Can you guys see them? We see you. We really do. In our mind's eye, we know you're here. We are together. And watch for a Facebook post pretty soon that will give you a link that'll take you to Vimeo, where you should be able to watch this service, which I lied. It was a lot longer than I said it was going to be, but these guys probably knew that. Hopefully you can watch it and we can be together in that way. And there should be information there as well on how you can get to the kids' version of the story of Jesus Coming to See, which is excellent. They'll have a great time watching it. It's very entertaining and fun, but has a similar message as what we've received this morning. And I think that's going to be about it. Watch for information this week. Depending on how things change in the world around us, we will either be here next week, and hopefully if we are in this same framework, we'll be live streaming so that you'll need to watch us right at 10, and you won't be watching a recorded version. If something else happens and we're not able to do this, I'll be contacting you from my house with my phone. It won't be quite as exciting, believe me, but maybe I can use one of those filters and make myself look 20 years younger.
Or like a dog.
It won't work, will it?
Make yourself look like a dog or a rabbit.
Yeah. Anyway, I may aim the phone at the wall, but you'll be able to hear me. Anyway, hopefully the 8 of us will be back here next week. We're going to close, and we're going to close like we always do with the same song we always use. Now, Mike or Chris on the soundboard, nobody ever hears when we make Jed like wear his fingers down and do his old, bass jamming like he used to do in the old days a lot. So just give it a little volume when we get there, and hopefully his fingers are going to work today. Because I think a lot of you don't get to appreciate that. We have some of the best musicians anywhere on this stage. I'm not going to include myself, but these 3 with me are amazing. And so we'll have some fun with the bass guitar this morning, and that finishes our service. So stay for this last song. You are beautiful, my sweet, sweet song. You are beautiful, my sweet, sweet song. You are beautiful, my sweet, sweet song. I will sing again. You are beautiful, my sweet, sweet song. You are beautiful, my sweet, sweet song. You are beautiful, my sweet, sweet song. I will sing again. I will not be ashamed of you, Father. I will not be ashamed of you, See you next time.
Whoops.
One more time. See you next time. Take care. Be safe. Be well. Signing out.